Alright, so a lot of people were asking me what happened to last week's episode review of Fairy Tale. Last week's episode, in all honesty, I felt like majority of it was a waste of time because of the way they would handle the thing with the keys. I mean, there was no reason for them to fight that stupid wannabe shark and the other dude. Like, it was pointless because at the end of the day they didn't even have the real keys on them. Arcadios had the real keys, so that episode honestly felt wasteful. The only thing that it really did was it served to give a little bit of a purpose as to how everything came about. Apparently it has a connection to Eclipse, so it was kind of trying to, I guess, wedge it into like, oh yeah, this could totally fit into the canon or whatever, and why everyone went batshit crazy. And it gave a plot device to get rid of the, I guess, celestial spirits, at the same time not hurting them with those keys that the princess gave in. So that's really the main thing that it did, but the constant fights, we'll call them, because they really just weren't all that at all, was pointless. So in all honesty, last week's episode, I actually did record my review, but I just really didn't feel it was necessary to talk about, and I summed it up right here and there. Like, you could literally, if you didn't watch last week's episode, you could literally hear what I just said and then just watch this week's episode, because that's all that it really served. Princess Heathsweet and Arcadios returning, and yeah, those things that I just mentioned. This week's episode was a little bit better than that. I definitely feel as though the fights were a little bit more enjoyable and ultimately served a little bit more of a purpose, for that matter, because it was the celestial spirits coming back and saying, yo, we're really going to give you guys a run for your money this time, and we want our freedom. Now, it kind of made me wonder a little bit exactly why do they want this freedom so bad, if at any cost, for that matter, because they're basically like, we know that we only have 12 days to live and we don't give a fuck, we want our freedom. Can't they just come to this world anyway? Or is it that they're on borrowed time, or they're on limited time? Or is it just a mental thing of, yeah, no, we're totally free, we're not slaves anymore, because they have this like weird fucked up mentality. So I was thinking to myself, why is this such an urgency that they want this freedom, even if it only allows them to live for 12 days? Is it that they just love the human world and want to be able to roam around it without any timer? Or what's up with that? Majority of the episode was fights and setups for a couple of different contests. It was weird how some of them was like, you got like dueling, like, I don't know, it was like on some Yu-Gi-Oh shit with cards, and there was just a couple of different weird challenges they were gonna have. So I was like, the end of the episode with that fight with Elfman and the Taurus or the bull or whatever, I was like, really? Like, the way it ended, because at first it was like going really good and it was just like, holy shit, he's smashing Elfman's face into the ground, but the way that fight went out was ridiculous. It was supposed to be funny or whatever, and it was just like, sweat. Really, like, one went down by sweat. So the fight ultimately turned out like kind of shitty, and the episode as a whole, it had some good setups, and for the most part towards the beginning up until like the midway point, the art looked really good. Animation was just non-existent. I mean, when they would move, it would just look like they were panning across the screen, so animation wasn't anything. But I guess the best bits of this episode was the actual setups and some of the little action that it had. Although, I mean, that one dude looked like an idiot when he was like, I have the keys, and it was actually fake. So yeah, this week's episode better than last week's episode, and it served a little bit more of a purpose, and it seems as though like this arc isn't going to last that long. I'm hoping that it's only going to be like a 12 episode filler, because we already got things into gear. It looks like we're about to fight them for a final fight, which it kind of feels as though we've been fighting them a lot throughout this entire arc, but it seems as though we're going to have our final competitions and fights, because some of them aren't even actual fights, and then this arc is going to come to a close. So that's good in that aspect, but as a whole, this episode, I'm leaning towards maybe like a 5 out of 10. The best things that it did is that it had progression into seemingly some of these, fights starting and everything, but the fight with Elfman was terrible. I mean, like, the ending of it, the outcome was terrible, of how he beat him by sweating on him. Like, really? And I mean, we got like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel monsters. Like, one of the most promising looking fights, I guess, is Lucy versus Virgo. That looks like if Lucy steps up and stops being a punk and letting them, bitch her around or whatever, it could be a pretty cool fight. But aside from that, it's just like, And maybe a couple of the other fights might be cool, but overall, it's like, I guess the best ones is probably gonna be Lucy versus Virgo and Natsu versus Loki, because Loki, like, you've been talking to talk, and again, it just makes me wonder, what do you guys think? Why do they want this freedom so bad if they can pretty much go to the human world and go wherever they want anyways? And what do you think overall of the episode? Again, last week's episode I felt was damn near pointless. This week's episode, it was alright, nothing too spectacular. Again, like the fight with Elfman was kind of crusty, but at least we got some advancement. And overall thoughts, but that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, if you do so as well, that'd be awesome. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.